Hey, everybody, everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon, and I'm coming at you once again on my live every Monday show here at Strong Inspirations, where I and they and you can give it to all of us straight, no chaser, because that's what we do to intoxicate the mind with Black history as the focal point. Not DUI type intoxication, but to let you know we keep the story going very effectively through the people who join me. And I'm a better person as a part of this. Now, Strong Inspirations, just to give you a little backstory, we're almost 4 years doing this. We're over 500 videos, and it's interviews with people around the world to tell stories of all sorts and some wellness content too. So look at Strong Inspirations, go down the list and pick a video to watch. Now we do it in two fronts. One front is what we have here now, live show, where we invite the public to come in and join. And after the special guests and I have kind of wind down, so to speak, me asking questions and the topic, then the public is invited to ask questions also and have comments. That's one angle. And then the other angle is where I interview people specifically, and it's not live. And that is what you'll see the 99% of the videos that are on the channel. And we release at least one of those every week. But we do this live show every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be cognizant of the Eastern Standard Time, same time as New York City, same time as Florida, Atlanta, and all of this side of the USA. All right. And so, a couple housekeeping things, right quick. I'm an author. I'm author of this book, Black Business Book. It's America's #1 Black business history book. Over 200 amazing facts. I guarantee you will learn something new, or you know it all. And as a know-it-all, I give your money back. How about that? Get you a copy of that. It's on Amazon. And also, as this book is, it's a children's book titled They Did It. It's 30 rich Black people who lived in the 1800s. I tell you the name, the year they were born, and what they did. And that is only available on businessintheblack.net. Then I have a movie out titled Business in the Black, and it is streaming on Amazon. And in the next 2 days, my friends, I will be releasing not one, but two Black History calendars. One with quotes by famous African Americans, the other with inspirational information about famous African Americans who lived in the 1800s. There's 12 of them in that calendar for 2025. Very colorful too. Very reasonably priced on all that I do, because I want you to have it. It's more important for you to have it than it sit in my basement. I know what's in it, and I want you, my friends, to know also. Now, I'm so excited that here on today's show, we have a lady who has been on the show twice. And because she is very impressive to me, as all my guests, I will admit, but also because she has a commitment to share this history with you. And so as a result, I'd like for her to come on, tell us your name, kind of give us a little intro, and let's get it on. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, thank you. Greetings, everyone. I send you greetings from the beautiful coast of Georgia, here in the beautiful city of Brunswick. But right now, I have the pleasure of being in the cradle of the Gullah Geechee corridor, on the coast of Georgia, Meridian, Georgia, which is a historic African American community on which I would love to, talk about later on as we get into our conversation. However, I am a creative. I am a local historian. I research. I am a cultural consultant here on the coast. I am the executive director of Heritage Works Incorporated, which is a Georgia state nonprofit organization where we're teaching the next generation and their parents on how to make their history and their heritage work for them. And so we do that in many ways, but one of the most important ways is through educating through environmental justice and social justice and using that history that we have to create a better today. And so I'm so happy to be with you all this evening.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that, and thank you for being on here. And so, the first question is, what is it that you do? Explain that again. Yeah, tell us a little bit more and how you do what you do, and so on and so forth.
So what I do is I live my life on the coast, and I have the great opportunity to sit with many of the elders here on the Georgia coast who have seen a lot of things and how it has changed over a period of time. And so what I do is I talk to the elders as well as bridge the gap between them, my generation, and also the generation after me, so we can understand that we're more connected than we are disconnected. And so I do that with having world cafes where we come in and we get, it's intergenerational. We get our community to come in and tell us or draw the picture of what they would like their community to look like and how they would make the steps to make their community this place. Um, and also, we are doing a wonderful activity of local oral histories, and keeping those in the Library of Congress using the StoryCorps app. We have about 40 local oral histories between McIntosh County, Glenn County, and Macon County, where we are hearing the histories of these elders and the youth as they see their communities, their small rural communities change over time.
I guess the first question is, and all that is very impressive. How do you come to do this? And what I mean by that is, people use history to teach it, and I'm sure that's what you just said, no question. They use it to, for the most part, teach it, let's say. But how did you come to do what you do? Yeah, how did you think of this as an opportunity to turn it into a living?
So I am what I would like to call myself. I kick doors down. I don't. When people tell me no or close a door, I create things for myself. And so I create my own table to sit at instead of waiting to sit at someone else's table. And so I had the great opportunity to volunteer at a school that just turned 100 years old this year. And I was doing a lot of volunteer work. And I can really, if I had to brag about myself, the thing that I would brag about is my creativity, where I'm never bored. I'm always looking for something that could be innovative or help someone. And so I was tasked with the duty of writing a grant of how to get youth involved in historic preservation through linguistics and agriculture. And so this really started off as a grant that I wrote for about $50,000. And it just so happened that I got to keep my idea, and I turned it into something where I wanted to help my community. I wanted to help the next generation. Never in a million years did I see myself being a tour guide. or doing the things that I do because I didn't see people like me in those arenas. And so, but I did have a lot of educators in my life, Black women who always wanted to teach and always wanted to pour into someone. And so I was just one of those lucky souls that got poured into. And from that, with that pouring into my love of education already, or love of knowledge, and my creativity, I just create things. That's
Okay,
just what
I
I do.
got you.
And my
Because
gift makes room for me.
when I first met you, you were doing something else for the
Yes.
most part, right? What was that?
Well, it was still history. And I think at that time, yeah, I was at the school at that time, and I was doing tours. And also you've been able to see me just evolve.
Yes, there's no question. Because every
You've been
time,
able to
not
see
every
me
time, but
evolve.
each time it has that central theme, but it's even more expansive in what you.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Right. So, all glory belongs to God, just I I have just been so blessed to be amongst the elders who see the light in me, and they're like, okay, come on, let me show you a little something. And every rung goes higher and higher. And so I've just had the opportunity that the elders trust me with their memories, and they trust that I'm going to uphold that, and help to. You just never know who you're talking to. We praise Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but when you find out about Septima Clark, and last time we talked about Tunis Campbell, these are unsung people who are the reasons why we have our Martins and our Malcolms. And so, I'm just in training to be somebody's ancestor. And when they talk about me, I want, when somebody writes a book like you did about, the 200 facts
Yeah.
about Black people, I want to be one of those facts. And so,
Okay.
so, and even if I don't make it into the book, at least my grandchildren and my great grandchildren will be able to say, my great grandmother did that,
Yeah.
and
Well,
so.
we got you on video, so that many times. This is the third time. So what do? You find these people. You will see somebody walking down the street who is old. You go approach them. Is it a little bit of both of those, or yeah?
you
How does
know
it work?
Okay. And it just happens in so many different ways. I call it spirit. For instance, my most recent encounter with spirit is, I just had the pleasure of going to the 42nd anniversary of the diaspora of the Harris Neck descendants, here in McIntosh County. And Harris Neck was Black Wall Street on the coast of Georgia.
Okay.
And there were African American men and women, who were industrious people, and they had their own church, they had their own township. And so, um, the government, the federal government, claimed eminent domain over that over that land and displaced all of those families.
Wow.
And
Now, this was when? When?
this was in 1942, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. 1942. I got so many dates, but if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken, it was 1942. And they were commemorating this event, and I just had the pleasure of being there, and meeting elders who actually did this. So it happened in they did eminent no domain in 1942, and then in the 1960s, there was they got together and they wanted to reclaim their land, and they were just displaced. And so here they are, fighting for their land still to this day. And so I had the pleasure of meeting the elders who are still going strong. They're 70 years young, 60 years young, still fighting
Okay.
for their land. And so that's how spirit works for me, where I'm just at the right place at the right time, where I'm going to meet, and it's just not we might think, oh, that's just a sweet elderly person with a piece of peppermint and butterscotch,
Right.
and then you
Right.
sit and talk to them, and you're like, you did what? You're what? And so I've just had a richness of experiences with the elders, right on to, our dearly departed Tina McElroy Ansa, who was a great author on the coast. She came here to live on the coast of Georgia, and she wrote many books.
Okay.
Baby of the Family, The Hand I Fan With. I had the opportunity to meet her and sit with her. And so I've just been so blessed, Anthony. I've
Let
been
me
so
ask you,
blessed.
how do you sit with them? Do you have a recorder? Do you videotape it, or you
I have
sit?
a recorder now. I have a recorder now. I'm thinking about all of these conversations, that I've had and did not have a recorder. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why didn't I know that? But hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so now you're not gonna catch me slipping. You're gonna see me with my
But
recorder, and you're
okay,
gonna see me documenting these things. And I'm so happy that we can have these conversations, because it's simple things like that that can make your history and your heritage work for you. It's simple conversations that you have on your front porch with your grandma or your mom. Do you
right,
know how different the world was in 1967,
right,
1942,
right. Let me ask you
1924?
this. Let me ask you this. First of all, I'm gonna ask you this one. Is because I go on the bad, the good first. Let's call it that. Is there a question that you can't ask somebody that you have come to know that if I ask them, I'm teetering on, I'm gonna turn them off?
You gotta yes, there has been times like that, but sometimes if we're patient, that answer is gonna come to us. We don't even have to, and I'm not trying to get all mystic and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, sometimes that question that we have, that answer comes to us. And we just it might not come in the way that we think it should come,
Yeah.
but it comes to us.
Let,
But yeah, there have been many times where it has been tough to ask a question.
let me ask you this. Let me kind of give you a lead in this regard. And I'm gonna stay on this just a tad. Let's say that you ran into somebody you didn't know it, but that they were raped by a white guy or
Mm.
something of some sort. And let's say you knew this. And do you ask a question of that? Well, what happened? Or let's say that they were not in rape is extreme, but let's just say that some other violation. Somebody broke in the house and kicked them off the land, and now they don't want to talk about this. And we hear that so often with our elders. They don't want to talk about it. Again, let's go back to, is there a question that you said that I teeter around this till we get to the answer?
You know, trauma trauma will make you close up and clam up.
Right.
We have to create space where a person feels safe enough to talk to us in that way, to open up, because that's a deep wound that we have an issue discussing in our homes, in our communities, in our churches, and in our places. Like, there is really tough, um, and we have to just be open to creating space. And it's just amazing that you would ask me that question, because I would love to have a space where we talk about these things. because that is a deep wound in women and men. But I've never been a man, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
about with women. That is a deep wound. And if we do not heal that wound, the things that we see on TV, the things that we see in our neighborhood that we do not like, if we do not heal that wound, it's gonna continue to spiral out of control.
Let me tell you that I'm leading in this direction, and I know many people who are watching this might say the same. My mom never wanted to go back home. I'm
Mm,
in Detroit, and most of you all probably know that now.
mm-hmm,
And she was born in, and I never knew the town. She never talked about it, but in a town in Tennessee.
mm-hmm,
All she told me was, and she might have been 5 or something when she left, but that she does remember it's not far from Nashville. It's not far, she gives some other things like that. And as she was getting older, and I'm who I am now, I'm into this Black History spirit at this point. I'm saying I want to go see this. I want to go see where you grew up. She had no desire. Do you find that to sometimes when you talk to these people who said, uh, again, maybe they have no desire to open up in some of what they might know as a child? Again, that trauma, or I don't know what made her feel that way.
Woo, child, we going deep tonight, ain't we?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah, yeah,
yes, I have, and I want you to know that not all of the people who have been hurt like that moved away from this place. Um, I remember, asking the elders, why didn't why didn't we know about these things? Why didn't, they talk to us about these things? And it's a couple of reasons. One, well, I didn't know you wanted to know. I didn't think that you were interested. That's number one. And then two is they didn't want, it's a lot of people that say that they don't want the next generation to feel that anger and that rage. They rather not talk about it.
oh,
But
okay,
but this is the issue though. What you don't talk about expresses itself in other ways, if that makes sense.
yes,
It expresses itself in other ways. So now you have a mother who won't express herself, but she's very overprotective of her children, right? So she won't let you go out when you want to go out, or you can't go out after this specific time of night, or you better be home before the street lights come on, right? These are things that express themselves, like, and then we grow up and say, man, I'm not gonna be like mom, I'm gonna do whatever, da 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 da.
yeah,
But we're not realizing that mama and daddy had trauma that they're trying to get over, that they did not have the time to sit and one feel sorry for themselves. So it expresses itself. It expresses itself in our health. you
yeah,
know it expresses itself in our health with high blood pressure and dementia and Alzheimer's, all of these
oh,
things,
yeah,
because you spend so much time trying to forget these things that you can't remember nothing now. You get what I'm saying? So
yes,
are these traumas express themselves in so many ways. And not only do we have the trauma from, what has happened in our family, we also have trauma from the air that we breathe, trauma from,
yes,
and
okay,
so we have to be able to notice these things and call them out, uh and be patient with people. And I mean, oh, but it leaves us with so many mysteries, like how great it would be for you to go to the town that your mother,
yes,
and to
yes,
be able to pray,
exactly,
that's what makes so many disconnects
yes,
in our fabric, and so
yes,
we're left with so many questions. The questions we don't ask leave us with more questions.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna go on the high note. Sometimes if a person has done something in their life, let's say some kind of greatness of whatever sort, they don't want to brag about that. Are you able to get them to open up and they say, hey man, let me tell you what I did. I had this business, or I did this, or I was a loving husband to my wife for 50 years, or whatever greatness it might have been in their life, for them to brag upon themselves.
I got two stories for you.
Yep.
Two. Okay. And these are two uncles from both sides of my family, my mama's side and my daddy's side.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to start with my uncle on my mom's side. This was, when I was growing up, he was the fun uncle, It's two uncles. It was a stern uncle and it was a fun uncle. And so, of course, the fun uncle is everybody's favorite uncle. Well, anyway, short story long, this favorite uncle of mine was the first Black commissioner in the city that I live in. Never knew that. Never knew that. That is very important to know. My uncle was the first Black commissioner. Okay, he didn't brag about it. He didn't boast about it. I was very grown when I found out that that was what my uncle did, and I could go back and look at the meeting minutes and see the things that he said. That's amazing.
Wow.
Okay, my grand uncle on my dad's side, I am on my way. I called my uncle out of the blue because I'm working with the University of Georgia and we're collecting these stories, and I want to come and talk to the farmers up in Macon County. And my uncle, who is very, very direct, this is my dad's uncle. He's very direct, but he's very sweet to me because I'm named after his only sister. And he said, "Look, girl, don't you know that you Flint River Farms Resettlement Community?" And I'm like, "What? What is that?" The Flint River Farms Resettlement Community was going on during the New Deal with Franklin Roosevelt, and they went to all of these different communities in different states, and they started these resettlement communities. Well, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great grandfather were one of the 170 families that started this in Macon County, Georgia. Okay, why didn't you tell me this?
Right.
Why don't I know this? Do
Right.
you know how that changed how I felt, how I looked at myself? I'm very much grown, and it has changed everything about how I feel about myself and everything. It's just I have a confidence. Do you know who I am, where I come from? Now
Right.
imagine that being in a child
Got
knowing
you.
these great things. If it does it for me at my 38 years of age, right?
Right. 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 Sure. Sure. Sure.
If it brings me so much pride and it gives me the strength to stand up and be strong, imagine what that could do to my children and my children's children, And so we have to make sure that these things are that's important to know. That's important to know that I love to teach because my great grandmother was a teacher and she taught for 50 years in her community. I love to do these things because it's a part of me. And so our families did not leave us, our ancestors didn't only leave us with trauma, they left us with some great things as well.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
you
Yes.
know, we got to have the good and the bad. What's
Yeah.
wrong with that? Why we got to choose?
Yeah. I
You
got
know,
you. I got
my
you.
my favorite analogy or my favorite, statement is the sun shines on the trees, but the trees cast shade. Two wonderful things can happen at the same time.
Oh,
The
no
sun is
question.
shining, but it's so hot that I'm gonna have to stand under this tree for shade.
Yeah.
So we
Let
gotta
me let
see
me ask
both.
you this. Have you ever cried talking to somebody?
Let me tell you, I had the most ugly cry, and it wasn't even talking to somebody. I met my grandmother. I'm her namesake. Her name is Helen Elizabeth Latson, and I was named after her, but my middle name is Rachel. And here I am in cold December, sitting. I had never gone to her gravestone, her place of rest before ever, because I was just never taken to that place. And my uncle finally took me to that place, and I just sat in the cemetery and I cried like a baby. I cried. Um, it's just knowing what she went through, what she endured, and meeting her. And I say meeting her loosely, but yes, I cried because I knew the story of her, but I always wanted to be close to her, and so I
Okay.
felt close. And so yeah, I have yet to cry at a story, or a history that someone has told me yet, but I know it's on its way.
Yeah, oh sure. But I cried on in some of the interviews I've done with people, no question about it. Could not help it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you this. This kind of leads into when we first talked, you had a title for tonight's episode.
Right,
And this goes into that title. Tell us that title that you thought of, and tell me why you thought of that title.
right. So my title was, or the topic was, how to make history work for you. How to apply history and make it work for you. And I chose that title because a lot of people, we look, when we're talking about dates and when we're talking about events, people want to know, how does that equate to what's going on now? Well, it does in so many ways. And when you're able to put these connections together, it can help you understand what to do and what not to do. Or, well, what am I going to do with Black history, or what am I going to do with these things? I would suggest that people learn one historic site in their community. Every community has a historic site somewhere that something happened. You learn that historic site when people come and want to take tours of your community. You can take them on tours, and that would be extra revenue for you. If you have to get a license, please do it the legal way, people. Please
Yeah.
do it the legal way. But there's certain places where tour companies are always coming. That was one thing that inspired me. The tour company that I worked for, or the tour guides that I worked for, they were the only African American tour company on the island, or in Glenn County, that was doing tours on a regular basis. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to make that better. I wanted to make it different.
Okay. Well, but then the other part of it is, and I know to do a tour, but there is something to be said for how it makes a person feel, because you alluded to how you felt knowing some of the greatness in your family history.
Could you repeat that, please?
You mentioned one of the things that happens in terms of understanding uh, how to apply Black history to today is educating others, as tours or otherwise. But it also made you feel so much more pride knowing the greatness that was in your family.
Oh yeah. Now that is the most rewarding part of it all. That is the most rewarding of it all. Because it's very important where I come from. Here on the coast, within the Gullah Geechee Nation, the question is, who your people is. Who are you? Who you for be? Who you be for? And if you cannot tell people where you're from and who your people are and how you're connected, you're gonna have to sit out until you find out who you are. And so with that being said, this has been a great journey towards self for me. And being able to know who I am, and to that brings self-confidence, and that does bring pride. Because if you don't know who you are, somebody will be able to tell you who you are.
I
And
love it. Yes. I love it.
so yeah, I don't want anybody defining me.
I,
One of the principles of Kwanzaa, one of the seven principles, is Kuji Chakalia, or
right.
self-determination. And so that's one of my most favorite principles. And so I'm going to be able to tell who I am. I'm going to be in charge of my narrative, And so yeah, I'll determine who I am.
How do you I'm gonna get a little political here because I can. How do you think what's happening in the politics today with number 45 and the fights and the governments and stuff like that, is this reflective of what might have happened in history? And could we, if we knew this in history, we could then be prepared to how to deal with it, maybe?
Just
What's your
waiting for
take on that?
somebody. I want somebody to tell me the difference between 1865, 1924, 1964, and 2024. I'm waiting for someone to tell me the difference between these things. Um, uh, Convict leasing is still slavery. That's what it is. That is, it's still slavery. You're still being able to put people and subject people into a system where they have to work for little to nothing for a very long time. Okay, so that's the thing. Through all of those different decades that I just talked to you about, there were things, there were illnesses that were going on. We have COVID-19 that is running, that is still going on. We don't really want to talk about that. I know that's a controversial conversation. But in 1865, it was scarlet fever, it was yellow fever, it was all of those type of things. And all of the people are still dying in the middle of the street. People are still getting lynched in all of those decades. So I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what's the difference between all of those things. Um, we and I think that the only thing that has changed with us is we have become very apathetic politically, and we do not have the economic wealth that we had in those decades. You have a whole book of people who was doing their thing in the 1800s. We know what was going on in 1920. We know what was going on in 1960. And here we are in 2024, and we do not have the economics that we had in that time. And so those are the things that are different, but all of those other things are quite similar. So I think that it would behoove us to learn our history, and to know that if we do not make these connections, we are doomed to repeat.
Oh, very well put. Because um, so often that is what people do say. That particular phrase. Now, let me ask you, and then I'm open up the floor if anybody have any questions and comments, things of that sort. Please do join in. Do do you do is people don't like studying Black history? Some people, because they don't understand the positive connections that lie within all those stories. They don't understand within slavery, within civil rights. There is positiveness in each one of them. If nothing else, to understand how far we've come despite those. Is that something that you also kind of highlight when you talk and that you get from the elders. Do the elders say we know we've made strides on the struggles of what they did? Do they take credit for that?
Yes and no. Um, I think that what messes us up is that we want to hero worship when it comes to Black history. When we say that we don't want to talk about Black history, that means we don't want to talk about American history, because Black history is the fabric of American history.
Okay, right.
There
That's right.
would be no American history. There would be no America without Black history and Black people who built the canals, who built the prisons that they was gonna live in. Okay, that pig, that gleaned the rice, that got the tobacco, that made the indigo dye. Come on, the list goes on and on. The music, the oh gosh, we are so interwoven into that. But I think what bothers us is that our history, people like to start our history at slavery. I think that's the issue, that we don't go back any further than slavery. One, everybody was not enslaved.
That's right.
That's number one. Two, those who were enslaved were not some shiftless people who did not have a skill.
That's
These
right.
people had skills, these people had trades. They came with the know-how, they came complementing what the indigenous people had already grown here and had
That's right.
already done.
That's right.
And so it wasn't just by happenstance that, I think we're gonna enslave some Africans today. It
That's
didn't
right.
just, as our hopeful future president of the United States said, it didn't just fall out of coconut tree.
That's right.
Okay, this was studied, this was planned. And so if we could just take what we have, take what we know, and even if we have to revise it for ourselves, see, because a lot of people been revising history.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why we don't like history now, because the wrong people have revised our history. If we can take what we know and agree that we come from greatness,
There
and like
you
I
go.
said, narrate our own stories, I
There
just
you go.
truly believe that we won't have these issues.
There
we
you
we
go.
can stop waiting for somebody else to validate us, and we can validate ourselves.
I
That's how I
love
feel.
it.
And that's
Love
how
it.
you make your history work for you, is you validate yourself with your history.
I love
Okay?
it.
And that's the moral of the story.
That's the moral of the story and the topic for tonight. So let me stop here and of my question asking. And is there anyone who's joined us who would like to ask a question? Please come on, make a comment or anything of that sort. Anybody with us? Okay. And if you do, please, we still got another 15 more minutes, let's say. Um, it, it, uh, do people think that you only live in the past?
I would like to call myself a time traveler. Um, I they call it Afrofuturism now. Um, where you can live in the past, the present, and the future at the same time. Um, I will not say, I don't know if people think that I live in the past. I think that people think that I spend a lot of time alone with myself and my thoughts. But now for me, I'm just that Sankofa bird is for real, always looking back, and looking back so you can move forward. And not looking back to remain there, looking back because it's just some traditions that just sustained me, that just kept me just sane. Hand games, remembering the hand games that we played, remembering
Well, let me stop you
that.
there. Do you show us one of them? Do you know one of the hand games they
Oh
played?
man, y'all remember you can do slide, baby one, baby two, baby
Oh
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you go on, or you can do down, down, baby, down, down the roller coaster. Yeah.
yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I
Um,
do.
those hand games, they told stories. That was when girls played games with one another, and it was a group and it was a community. I don't know where I would have been without, my girlfriends growing up playing hand games. That's a lost art. Girls don't do that anymore. Right. Girls don't play anymore. We're sat in front of the TV or told what to be. They're not using their imagination, their creativity anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I do live in the past, but somebody got to sustain it.
I love it.
It's some things that are worth. It's just some things that are worth preserving. Not everything, but there
Yeah,
are
I
some
love it.
things that are just worth preserving.
If you were able to go to Florida and try to talk, let's say, to the governor and talk him out of and him and his people to talk him out of what they're doing, what might you say to him?
You know, Anthony, I really don't. Let me tell you something. They're running from something. Nobody wants to be painted as the villain. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants their children to know that they did some really horrible things, or their grandparents or their parents did some really horrible things to other people. And I really think that that's just what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to, that's called self-preservation, where I'm not going to allow y'all to learn about it. I'm not going to allow anybody to have any conversations about what's going on. And so they're trying to preserve themselves. But what they have to know is all of that stuff is going to come to the light somehow, some way. TikTok is they're trying to shut TikTok down, and I know why. They are educating so many people at such a exponential time, at its exponential rate.
That's right.
That they don't want people to know these things. And so it's like we have to make sure that we just realize that people that that governor is scared, is afraid for his life. He is afraid for his life, because when his grandchildren or when his children look back at what he did, he is not going to be on the right side of history. He is not.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me
so
say this, and you're exactly right. And I think some of what I have come across is I was in Selma, Alabama for the bridge crossing back in March for the 59th, and I'll be going back there again for the 60th of the Bloody Sunday, recognition and so on and so forth. And there was a white guy, and I've met a couple of them, one out of Scotland, England, and there are others. There's even an association of them. But this one white guy I'm talking about in particular that I met at that event, his great grandfather was one of the largest enslavers in Mississippi, and he wrote the Jim Crow laws for the state of Mississippi.
wow.
And everybody that I interviewed him, so please go to the channel and look for that interview, because this guy is explicit. And the thing that he's doing is, and he said, I cannot apologize because I didn't do it. But on behalf of myself and those in my family who want to align with me, I want to say I'm sorry. And that was the same thing with this other guy that I interviewed. He was in Scotland, England. He wrote a book about it. He knows his family got the money from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, I wrote a book. I don't take a dime from the book. I got enough money to make copies and just keep it going in that right, because he accidentally found out through some papers lying around the house that his great grandfather was one of the largest enslavers in Barbados. He's got papers saying of the brutality that they did to him, the branding and so on and so. He's got the design of the logo for the brand. So there is some of that that comes up too by some of them realizing that their family directly participated in it and their conscience has gotten the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, that leads to my question. Have you talked to any white people?
I have. I met when I was at the diaspora. I met a woman and her mother who really who were their family was enslavers as well there, and they were there just trying to make it right and fighting for them to get their land back. And she was trying to make connections as well with the history of her family, and she's writing a book as well. And so it's very interesting how people are really trying to people are really trying to not pay penance, but they're really trying to make it better. That not make it better, but they have to acknowledge that their family had something to do with what was going on.
Yeah.
With the enslaving of another group of people. And so it's a lot of people that I have had the pleasure of meeting. A woman, she has a website called They Had Names, and she is looking up, she has a register of all of the names of those who were enslaved. And she was her family her family were enslavers as well. So yeah, they're doing it's some work that's being done. It's
Yeah.
some work that's being done.
I also have interviewed a guy, Chester, I can't think of his last name. Oh man. But in any event, everybody go down the channel, you'll see this one. He wrote a book because he found out his great grandfather was in the KKK and killed a guy. He
Wow.
participated in the Elaine massacre. People don't talk about that one in Elaine, Arkansas.
Wow.
He found out. And him and his great grandfather were close when he was a young kid, right? Well, when he found that out, as later in life, so on and so forth, he disavowed his grandfather. And some say that that's what killed his grandfather. And the sickness of his heart, knowing of what he had done, but
Mm-hmm.
also how his grandson just would kind of disowned him in some respects. So there is some retribution to some of the people for what they've done.
Oh
And
yeah.
that leads to what you said might be what happens to DeSantis and some of those others.
Oh, when his with the same thing that you are trying to hide is gonna be the thing that's gonna bust you wide open.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be worse, because you went through all of this to burn the books, to keep people, to silence people, and the same person that you did not want to find out is gonna be the one to find out.
That's right.
And they're gonna hold you at a tougher regard.
And then, the other thing that happens, there are people like you who they put their life on the line to keep the history alive. So it ain't going away.
Right.
You won't let it go away.
Mm-hmm.
And last week I interviewed a lady by the name of Reverend Rhonda Thomas out of Florida. The organization is called Faith in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is they're gathering the churches to teach Black history in the church.
That's
And
the
there's other
main place where
programs.
it need to be taught.
Yeah, and then they give them a template of what to teach so that they teach it correctly. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go away, and that's because of people like you. Would you say you have found this is your ministry? This is your mission? What is this to you?
Ooh. Now, if it is my ministry or my mission, I I I embrace that. But this is just a passion of mine. I've always been interested in Black history, always. And I remember, and I probably already told this story to you before, but I wrote a play for the elementary school that I grew up in. I wrote a play as an adult, and I gave it to the principal, and he had been a mentor of mine. And he called me into his office and he said, Miss Latson, I really, really your liked your play. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, it's a doggone shame that she had to go all the way to Montgomery, Alabama, when she could have just went to her backyard and had found the Black history there. And from that point on, I was just on this search to find out what happened in my community that I grew up in. What happened in these rural places that I just say, oh, this is just a small town. And ever since I put that in the forefront of my mind, doors just have been opening for me. So it could very well be my ministry. It could very well be my mission. But I just know that I want to uphold and uplift those things, because if it happened once, it can happen again. And it's happening now.
We got 2 more minutes left. You know what I'm asking to do? How do we promote you? Do you have a website, and can people donate to your organization? Tell us
Yeah.
about that, because we want to do it.
Yes. So www.heritageworks for FOR us .org is where you can contact me. You can contact me by email, heritageworks, the number for us, at gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram, heritageworks for us underscore, heritageworks underscore for us, excuse me. And also at the History Midwife. So that's how you can connect and stay connected with me, and what we're doing.
I love it. Well, hey, everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon with another fine episode here at Strong Inspirations. Strong strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is who my guest is, a strong soul sister who has found her mission. It came osmosis. And here we are. We got her on the channel. She's here with us again. Do go to her website, please, everyone. And when you're in that Brunswick, and that's more where you're headquartered, right?
Yes.
Which is where? Where is that at? Give us a little.
On the coast of Georgia, right between St. Simons and Jekyll Island. But I am about 45 minutes from Jacksonville, Florida, and 45 minutes from Savannah, Georgia. So,
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, hey, everybody, that's where she's at. And look her up. And there's festivals down throughout that area. You can hang out at the festival. And oh, how about this? You do public speaking? Do you would if people contact you, and I'm sure you might say yes, but would you travel to tell some of the stories you know?
I would love to do that.
There you
I
go.
would love to do that. Yeah, I would be open to that.
Yep. There you go, everybody. She got an honorarium too now. She got to live. So keep that in mind. Go to her website, so on and so forth. And then I'm signing off with this. Thank you so very much, all you guests who have watched tonight. Thank you so much for watching and being with me once again on Monday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at Strong Inspirations. The Zoom link is on the website, where you can also get the books and the movies and everything, the calendars, at businessintheblack.net. Next week's guest is a gentleman by the name of Herman Johnson. Herman Johnson is the co-founder Executive Director of the Mound Bayou Museum. He's going to tell us a little bit about some of that Black history and how to live it in your community. How, I guess it's titled Living Black History. All right. Thank you so much again. And I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Bye-bye.